When you watch a high-performance sports car hit a hairpin turn at like 100 miles an hour, the car doesn't just instantly snap into the new direction.
Oh, definitely not. It'd fly right off the track.
Right. If you pay close attention to the physics of that moment, you see the entire chassis dip. The suspension system physically compresses. It has to, absorb those massive violent G-forces, really digging the tires into the asphalt. And only then does the car actually grip the road and rocket out of the corner.
Exactly. The vehicle has to actively accept the force of the turn before it can redirect that energy into forward momentum. Like I said, a rigid suspension would just cause the car to skitter completely out of control.
Okay, so let's unpack this, because today we're taking that exact mechanical concept and applying it to a place you might not expect. Welcome to today's deep dive.
Yeah, we are pulling from a really fascinating stack of recent biomechanical research papers, 3D swing kinematics data, and some pretty advanced coaching manuals.
All to unpack an incredibly specific, but just completely game-changing piece of human movement. We are looking at lead ankle dorsiflexion, braking, and ground force control during the golf downswing.
Which I know might sound like an incredibly technical corner of sports science.
Very niche, yeah.
Right, but it actually happens to be the absolute foundation of everything a golfer is trying to achieve. I mean, the modern player obsesses over launch monitors, club head speed, getting that perfect torso rotation.
Oh, you can spend thousands of hours optimizing your backswing alone.
Exactly. But none of that matters. Literally none of it, if your connection to the ground is faulty. The data we're looking at today really proves why the ankle is the literal gateway to the entire kinetic chain.
And I don't want you, the listener, to think of this as some dry anatomy lesson either. This is the secret to unlocking raw power and dynamic balance. If we go back to that sports car analogy, your lead ankle is your suspension system.
What's fascinating here is that the ankle acts as this highly sophisticated shock management system. It allows you to receive immense downward and forward force before you can even attempt to produce rotational speed.
So it's catching the energy.
Right. The ankle has to manage that pressure so the force doesn't just bleed out into a lateral slide.
Wait, I need to push back on this for a second, because this is a massive shift in how most people approach power. For a golfer who is just desperate to swing faster, you're saying the speed doesn't start with, swinging the arms harder or firing the hips faster.
No, not at all.
It actually starts with a microscopic braking movement all the way down in the ankle.
The kinematics data leaves absolutely no doubt. Without proper ankle function, your body simply loses the capacity for rotational speed. You'll struggle to push vertically against the ground, and you suffer from poor low-point control.
Which is the scientific way of saying you hit the ground before the ball or you just top it.
Exactly. The ankle is the foundation that converts a moving lead side into a stable, powerful platform.
Okay, so I was looking at the kinematics data from our sources, and this specific term kept popping up as the trigger for that entire stable platform, dorsiflexion.
Yes, dorsiflexion.
Let's define the actual mechanics of what the ankle is doing during that transition from the backswing to the downswing.
So dorsiflexion is one of the very first critical movements of the lead ankle during that transition. To visualize it, as the downswing begins, your pressure moves toward your lead side, and your lead shin begins to travel forward over your foot.
Okay.
The angle between the top of your foot and your shin gets smaller. That's dorsiflexion.
And the research papers are very quick to point out that this is not a collapse of the joint.
No, not at all. It is a highly controlled loading action. We can actually break this down into two distinct phases. The first function is load absorption.
Right.
During transition, you have a rapidly increasing amount of force crashing into your lead side. As pressure moves into that lead foot, the ankle dorsiflexes, the shin advances, the knee flexes, and your lower body gains the capacity to actually absorb that incoming kinetic energy.
So it lowers your center of mass in a really controlled way, allowing you to accept pressure without just losing your balance.
Right.
It stops you from just sliding uncontrollably toward the target, which, is a massive power leak for so many amateur players.
Yeah, it prepares the lead leg to stabilize later, which preserves your ability to redirect force upward. The body remains dynamically balanced. The knee can move forward, the hip accepts the load, and the pelvis continues shifting and rotating. But there is a very specific Goldilocks zone for this movement.
Yeah, I imagine too little dorsiflexion, and your body can't accept the pressure efficiently.
Right.
But too much uncontrolled dorsiflexion, and your knee and pelvis just keep sliding excessively toward the target.
Exactly. The objective isn't maximum range of motion. The objective is just enough movement to absorb and organize the load so you can transition into the second phase, which is to stabilize and brake.
The braking phase.
Right. After the load is accepted, the ankle gradually returns toward a more neutral, controlled position. The lid leg resists further forward movement.
I love how the sources describe this braking action. It's exactly like a skateboarder hitting the transition of a half pipe.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. You drop in, you hit the curve of the ramp, and you have to bend your knees and let your ankles absorb the G-force of that transition curve before you can push back against the ramp to launch up and catch air.
Yep.
If you lock your ankles at the bottom of the ramp, you wipe out.
That captures the physics perfectly. You use the ankle to absorb the downward and forward energy, and then you use that controlled braking to give yourself a solid platform to push against. If you don't brake effectively in the golf swing, the pelvis moves too far forward, the knee stays too flexed, and you just bleed off all that potential rotational speed.
Which explains the excessive lateral movement and the loss of posture we see so often on the course.
Absolutely.
The lead ankle couldn't brake, so it couldn't give the golfer something to rotate and extend against. So how does this shock management system physically link up to the rest of the golf swing?
Well, we have to look at the foot-ankle complex as one integrated system. During the loading phase, your foot has to be adaptable and flexible to accept the pressure. But during the braking phase, it has to instantly become a rigid, stable lever.
The arch, the midfoot, the heel, they all play a part, right?
They do. But the advanced coaching manuals point to one incredibly crucial, often overlooked element.
The big toe.
Yes, the big toe is the anchor. The big toe stabilizes the forefoot and supports the entire structure as pressure moves forward. There is a physiological process called the windlass mechanism.
The windlass mechanism.
Right. When you engage that big toe against the ground, it pulls the plantar fascia tight along the bottom of your foot. That tension physically locks the bones of your midfoot together, instantly transforming your foot from a flexible shock absorber into a rigid braking platform.
That is brilliant. So if your lead foot loses contact with the ground too early, say, your big toe lifts up, you fail to trigger that mechanism. You severely reduce your ability to brake and redirect force because the foot never transitions from mobility to stability.
Which feeds directly into the kinetic sequence. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the sequence moves from the ground up. Foot to ankle to knee to hip to pelvis.
Ground up.
Yeah. As the ankle loads, the knee flexes, and the hip accepts force. As the ankle stabilizes and the foot becomes rigid, the knee controls and reverses its movement, allowing the hip muscles to aggressively decelerate the pelvis.
So the ankle essentially enables the speed. It doesn't generate the speed all by itself, but it creates the mandatory conditions for the lead knee to extend, the hip to rotate, the pelvis to rise, and that massive vertical ground reaction force to spike.
Think about what happens if the ankle fails at the very beginning of that sequence. The torso and arms can only accelerate if they have a stable base pushing against the ground.
That gives me a really great visual connection for the listener. When we watch the longest hitters in the world in super slow motion on a Sunday broadcast, is this ankle dorsiflexion the reason we see that distinct sort of squat or lowering motion right as they start their downswing?
Yes, that squat is the visual, real-world result of the lead ankle dorsiflexing and the knee flexing to absorb the load.
It looks like they're sinking into the turf.
They are. They're lowering their center of mass, using their ankle as that suspension system, gathering all that potential energy so they can slam the brakes and explode upward through impact.
Wow, so if this sequence relies on such perfect timing and foot mechanics, what happens when it breaks down? There has to be a cascading effect if that ankle fails to do its job.
Oh, there is. The biomechanical research identifies 4 major faults, and they all represent a failure to transition from mobility to stability at the correct time. The first is insufficient dorsiflexion.
Okay, so not enough.
Right. This is when a golfer simply struggles to move pressure into the lead side, or they raise their heel prematurely. It reduces stability and completely negates force absorption.
They basically never load the suspension system to begin with.
Exactly. The second fault is excessive forward collapse. This is the opposite problem.
Too much movement.
The ankle, knee, and pelvis just keep moving laterally without any control. The golfer delays the braking phase entirely. Producing vertical force becomes mathematically impossible because their center of mass is just sliding right past the golf ball.
Yikes. Okay, then we have early stiffening, which frankly sounds incredibly jarring for the body.
It is. Early stiffening happens when the lead leg becomes rigid before the load has been accepted. The golfer restricts the joint movement entirely, just refusing to absorb the shock of the transition.
Wait, here's where it gets really interesting. If a golfer early stiffens and completely fails to absorb that massive amount of downward force, I mean, where does that energy go? It doesn't just vanish into thin air.
It definitely doesn't. It travels right up the kinetic chain, seeking the next available joint. If your ankle won't bend to absorb the immense forces of a golf swing, the knee takes a massive beating.
Oh, wow.
The hip gets jammed. And ultimately, the lower back is forced to absorb rotational and shear forces it was absolutely never designed to handle. A staggering amount of lower back pain in golf is actually a foot and ankle problem in disguise.
That is wild. You could be spending thousands on physical therapy for your lumbar spine when the root cause is actually a microscopic biomechanical failure in your left ankle. Check your ankles to save your back, folks.
And what was the final fault the sources identified?
Loss of foot contact. This occurs when the golfer rolls excessively to the outside of their foot, or they lose connection through the forefoot and that all-important big toe.
So they lose the windlass mechanism.
Exactly. It destroys the windlass mechanism we talked about. You lose the quality of the braking platform. You simply cannot push powerfully off a foot that isn't fully grounded. Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem, and we understand the physics and the kinetic chain. But how do you, the listener, actually train this highly specific movement into your nervous system? Our sources provided a protocol called the Load, Stabilize, and Push drill.
And the beauty of this drill is that you don't even need a club to start. You begin by taking your normal golf posture in your living room or on the range.
Okay.
Place slightly more pressure through your trail side, but make sure you maintain solid, intentional contact through your lead heel, forefoot, and your big toe.
All right, I'm picturing it. I'm in posture. I'm feeling the ground. What's phase one?
Phase 1 is load. Slowly shift your pressure toward the lead foot. Allow your lead knee to move slightly forward while the ankle dorsiflexes. You should physically feel your body moving downward and toward the target side.
Got it.
But, and this is critical, do not let the knee collapse inward, and do not let the lead heel lift off the ground.
So I'm loading the suspension. I feel the pressure building. Then phase two is stabilize.
Right. Once the pressure has moved fully into the lead side, you intentionally stop the shin from continuing forward. You feel the ankle becoming rigid and stable.
Okay.
You maintain full contact through the entire foot, keeping that big toe anchored. Your body should feel heavily loaded, like a coiled spring, but perfectly balanced.
And then phase three is redirect.
Yes. From that highly stable, loaded position, you press firmly and aggressively into the ground. Allow the lead leg to extend. You should feel the lead hip and the pelvis begin to rise and rotate upward. The force is traveling vertically up through your body rather than just pushing your pelvis laterally sideways.
Okay, so if I'm trying to find a mental rhythm for this, out on the range, it's basically a 3-beat waltz for your lower body. Absorb, stabilize, push. 1, 2, 3.
Absorb, stabilize, push. Exactly. The protocol suggests doing 2 to 3 sets of 8 to 10 slow repetitions like this, barefoot if possible, just feeling the sequence and the ground contact.
Barefoot makes sense to feel that big toe.
Right. Then you grab a club and do small rehearsal swings. Finally, you progress to hitting actual shots at a reduced speed, forcing yourself to maintain that exact same lead ankle sequence.
The performance benefits of putting in the work on this drill are immense. I mean, it eliminates that lateral slide. It vastly improves your low point control, so you're compressing the ball purely, and it supports dramatically greater rotational speed through the torso and arms.
Because you are finally giving your body a mechanically sound platform to rotate around and push off from, you are maximizing your ground reaction force instead of fighting it.
Let's bring all these biomechanical details together into a clear, memorable framework you can take to the driving range. When we summarize everything we've learned from the kinematics data today, we are looking at a very specific sequence.
We are. The definitive sequence is dorsiflexion, which leads to load acceptance. That leads to stabilization, which allows for force redirection, resulting finally in propulsion.
It's like a domino effect.
It is. Each phase intrinsically prepares the very next phase.
And the central principle, the thing you have to unlearn if you've been struggling with power and consistency, is that the movement is not push first.
Pushing first destroys the sequence.
Okay.
It is always load first, control second, drive third.
So what does this all mean? Distilling this whole deep dive down to its absolute essence. Your ankle must move before it can stabilize, and it must absorb force before it can redirect it.
If you want a mantra to memorize for the golf course, it is this: load the ankle, control the movement, drive the swing.
Load the ankle, control
Right.
the movement, drive the swing. Now, before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a larger conceptual idea to chew on. We've talked extensively about the importance of the foot-ankle complex today,
Right.
specifically the big toe triggering that windlass mechanism, maintaining sensory ground contact, and allowing the ankle to transition seamlessly from mobility to stability.
It's the absolute non-negotiable foundation of rotational power.
So here is my provocative thought. If that intimate connection with the ground, that precise articulation of the foot and ankle are so vital, how much are modern golf shoes silently raising or lowering a golfer's biomechanical ceiling?
Oh, that's a fascinating question.
Think about what we are seeing in the market right now. Shoes with ultra-stiff soles, massive foam stack heights, rigid carbon plates, and varied heel-to-toe drop angles. If the goal is proprioception sensing the ground so your nervous system knows when to brake, are your high-tech, ultra-cushioned shoes actually fighting your ankle's ability to dorsiflex and stabilize?
This raises a really important point. I mean, if you put stiff, unyielding truck tires on that high-performance sports car we talked about at the beginning, the suspension system can't do its job properly. The car will slide out of the turn.
Exactly.
If your footwear restricts your big toe from grounding, or if a 2-inch stack height of soft foam prevents your ankle from sensing the turf and absorbing the load naturally, you are mechanically handicapping your kinetic chain before you even take the club back.
You're sacrificing biomechanical performance for walking comfort.
It's something every serious golfer should critically evaluate about their own gear.
It is definitely food for thought the next time you're lacing up for a round. Are your shoes helping you load, control, and drive, or are they getting in the way of your own suspension system? We'll leave you to ponder that one. If you found today's episode valuable, please subscribe to our channel. Every subscription helps us continue producing high-quality educational content for golfers and coaches worldwide. If you have a question, topic idea, or golf challenge you would like us to research, test, and explain, please leave a comment, contact us on LinkedIn, or send us an email. Don't forget to explore the eCoach 360-degree golf intelligence platform and experience our 48-hour free trial. You can also join our 30-day golf biomechanics, kinematics, ground reaction forces, and club kinematics certification program to deepen your understanding of golf performance.